Welcome back. It has been an eventful evening. The PC party took a serious hit, losing 10 seats. Christina Howard joins us with a little more. You've been following the campaign. So, Christina, where exactly did the PCs lose ground?
Well, really, it came down to Toronto. That's where they lost a lot of ground, in the GTA, in the suburbs of Toronto, and even Etobicoke Lakeshore. That's where Doug Holliday had just captured that seat in a by-election. He was the former mayor of Etobicoke. He was the deputy mayor of Toronto. He was really loved in that area, and still the Tories could not hold on to that seat. They lost some ground in the GTA and the Brampton, Mississauga, and surrounding areas, and that really was the death nail of this election. They maintained all their seats in southwestern Ontario. They held on strong in the east, but it always comes down to the vote-rich GTA.
Tim Hudak has been at Queen's Park since 1995. He was elected party leader in 2009. His 5 years at the helm, 2 losses to the Liberals. He announced he's stepping down. So this begs the question, who is the future of the PC party in Ontario?
Well, really, there isn't an heir apparent, but there have been a couple of big names that have been thrown around. And our own Monty McNaughton from Lambton Kent, Middlesex is one of those. He's a rising star in the Tory party. We've seen him take on some big portfolios, but he is a rookie. He's only been in office for a few years now. This is his first re-election. Still a rising star within the party. There's also Christine Elliott. Now, she's the deputy leader and the health critic. She's also the widow of the late Jim Flaherty, and really one of those people that a lot of voters have rallied behind. She's insightful, she's an attractive female, she's educated, and she really comes across as somebody that people can relate to and that understands their problems. It's still very early, though. We really don't know who would try and fill his shoes. We could also be looking into things like Vic Fedeli, who took a big star role when it came to the gas plant scandal, and he is the finance critic. But still, a lot of ground to cover, lots of time before the Tories have to make that new decision. I'm sure we're going to see a lot of people coming out from the woodwork and from people that you may not even expect as they head into their next leadership convention.
I'm just going to ask your opinion, Christina. Did you feel that the PC's loss had more to do with Tim Hudak than perhaps maybe just their policies weren't reaching typical Ontarians?
I think that they were and they weren't. I mean, if you look at where the vote split was, you really saw them losing ground in Toronto and the GTA. And when it comes to transit, that is such a huge, huge issue in the Greater Toronto area. People hate having 90-minute drives to work and then a 90-minute drive back. So talking about making real, tangible investments in GO Transit really resonates with people in the GTA especially. And what's interesting about the Greater Toronto area and Brampton and Mississauga is that these are ridings that traditionally have been liberal, but over the past decade or so, we've seen some movement to the NDP and to the Tories. It's interesting that the Liberals were able to recapture that, and I think a lot of that has to do with the time they spent in that area. Now, all 3 leaders spent the majority of their time in Toronto and the Greater Toronto area. Apparently, Kathleen Wynne's message seems to resonate with those voters much more.
Finally, Christina, what do you think the Liberal win means for southwestern Ontario?
Well, I think it means that Deb Matthews has a lot of work ahead of her. She is the last Liberal before we hit to the border. So really, she's now going to be presumably the minister responsible for all of us, all the way from London through to Sarnia, through to Windsor. So our representation at the cabinet table and on that government side of the legislature really is with Deb Matthews.
All right. Thank you for your time this evening, Christina. You know, we'll have full in-depth analysis and more coverage tomorrow on CTV News at 6 and 11 o'clock.